Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV back with another video, and in this video we are here to talk about Dexter Original Sin. We have the second episode of the show. I think it's called A Kid in a Candy Store. Miami Metro is properly introduced in this show, echoing the glory of the original series. This was obviously one of the fan favorites of the original series, is Miami Metro's inclusion itself. Just all the characters, the detectives, the sergeants, all the members of the force were great, and it's awesome to get reintroduced to them here. This episode balances humor and darkness while introducing some pretty key characters, of course. You know, we're kind of moving this season along, we're moving the show along. This is like I said in the last episode, this is kind of the official pilot of the show where everything gets kicked off. Dexter kind of returns back to his glory. Yeah, this episode's very promising, and it teases a very thrilling season ahead, and I'm very excited to get into this episode, and I'm very excited to continue to watch this season. Like I said before, with work, I'm not really sure. With work and the playoffs kind of combined, I want to kind of relax in the evening and watch some playoff basketball, so I'll still get some short form content out. I'm just not sure how often you will get TV show reviews. This episode aired on December 20th. They did like week by week, you know, once a week they would have a new episode of Dexter come out. It fully introduced Dexter Morgan to the world of Miami Metro homicide, and it was a steep learning curve for the forensic intern and budding serial killer. So it wasn't always easy at the start. Obviously Dexter had to kind of fit in. That's normal. This episode is again directed by Michael Lehman and written by Katrina Mathewson and Tanner Bean this time. It's called A Kid in a Candy Store, and it featured flashbacks to the 1970s Dexter timeline, showing Harry Morgan meeting Dexter's mother, Laura Moser, for the first time. So this is a pretty major episode. We get into some pretty important stuff. In the 90s timeline, the Miami Metro team are hunting down the kidnapper of a prominent judge's son, while Dexter gets to experience his first crime scene. And I like how they're kind of painting this. I like how they're kind of making it so like this is an official like first crime we're going after. It's not just like we're jumping from one crime to the next. I think this is a storyline that's going to develop over the next couple of episodes. Dexter's going to try to get to the bottom of it, and it's really cool because we'll kind of talk about it, but like him revealing stuff and him giving them analysis on blood spatter was kind of laughed at in the beginning, and now they kind of like celebrated him. Well, obviously not, but they celebrated him as, you know, a blood spatter expert. So that's kind of cool to see the beginnings of their creeping up here. Again, in this episode, you know, just kind of some, I wouldn't say this is plot because we're going to be just kind of overviewing the show, just kind of doing it in little segments. But this episode really introduces us to Miami Metro, and it's very properly introduced, and it's just as glorious as it was in the original series. This episode feels like a proper insight into what the prequel will look like, kind of episode by episode, after the pilot episode focused primarily on Dexter's first kill, kind of building into that, kind of the history of it, what happened, how it went down. Sorry if you guys hear thunder outside. I'll try to drown it with music. I don't know how well that's gonna work. Dexter is trying his best to fit in at Miami Metro, and once again Patrick Gibson nails all the little nuances of the character with great attention to detail. You can tell Patrick Gibson definitely sat down, watched some of the older episodes, probably watched the whole show and studied it like it was fucking film for Sunday Night Football or some shit. He eats a lot, which is crazy, sleeps, and surveys a crime scene just like Michael C. Hall's iteration does. And it is really hard to adapt an original character this well, and especially for a TV show. You know, I couldn't even imagine, you know, Walter White being readapted from Bryan Cranston to God knows who. Same with Rick Grimes. You know, all of these legendary characters, hell, even like Marty from Ozark. It's hard to emulate that. It's hard to kind of recreate that, and this show is hitting all the marks. I really like what they've been doing with it so far. You know, just very accurate to the original iteration, you know, while still making the role his own. You know, he is his own character. He gives that youthful flair, that youthful vibe to Dexter that we kind of need with a prequel. James Martinez gets to spread his wings on the role of Angel Batista, which is fantastic because I loved Angel Batista from the original series, with a hint of a lot more to come in future episodes. It was a blast here. You know, Christian Slater's Harry Morgan is yet again the standout in this episode as well. They're really putting a focus on him, and I really like that. I like that strategy. You know, with the 1970s flashbacks, it works really well. Introduces the backstory that led to Laura Moser's murder, introduced the backstory on how Harry Morgan met Laura Moser, and I guess we knew from the original show, they did mention like Laura Moser being a CI, a confidential informant to Harry, so they can kind of do this big old drug bust, but they're really going to focus on it here. They're really going to get down to the cracks and crevices and get to the nuances of this whole thing, so it's going to be very exciting to watch the show and see how they kind of paint this, see how they kind of explain it. There's a desire to find out what exactly happened before Dexter was adopted by the Morgan family, and how different his life could have been if it wasn't for his mother's brutal death, and that's kind of what we're aiming at in this show. That's one of the major storylines, and that's kind of developing right now, and I think it's great. The brief appearance of the future Ice Truck Killer is also a treat for Legacy fans. You know, Brian Moser making an appearance here was fucking awesome. It's a very promising episode. I mean, what can I say? There's not a whole lot that hasn't been said already, I'm sure, critically online and whatnot, and this thing kills it. It delivers the right mixture of humor and darkness, which you can't really say about the last episode. You know, the last episode wasn't super humorous. It was pretty dark, and now we kind of mix that in here. Again, it's kind of camaraderie of being in Miami Homicide and everybody kind of joking and busting each other's balls and all this type of stuff. There's a lot to get through in this episode, including the introduction of the potential big bad of the debut season, who currently remains a mystery to the audience, which adds a welcome mysterious vibe to proceedings. Kind of like this whole judge's son being held captive kind of storyline, although it is pretty subtle. You know, it's still going on in the background, and they're still trying to kind of find a way to integrate it at a higher level. They're obviously kind of just interweaving some other storylines and getting those kind of kick-started before we really focus on the main storyline of the season. It's great though. However, these darker moments featuring child kidnapping are balanced out with a nice dollop of classic Dexter humor. One moment features a classic Vince Masuka moment that'll have audiences rolling around with laughter, and he didn't even have to follow it up with the iconic laugh afterward. I mean, nice fucking work. Again, just the shenanigans that go on in The Office. This is stuff that everyone wanted to see about this show, and they are putting it on full display. Again, just the comedic relief is incredible here. Of course, the focus is still firmly on Dexter Morgan as he navigates his way through Miami Metro Homicide, trying desperately to impress his new boss, Tanya Martin, who we get a better look at. She's played by a pretty iconic actress in Sarah Michelle Gellar, and ingratiate himself with his father's detective colleagues. You know, he's just trying to fit in. He's just trying to kind of impress a bunch of people, and that's normal for an intern. That's what interns do. I don't know if I personally do that, but again, it's just so funny kind of following the whole thing and getting the whole workspace thing and all the tropes and everything that comes with it. I think it's really cool to kind of ride along that together with Dexter Morgan. Because of this, I mean, it's going to forever be like a special part of this universe, the Dexterverse, if you will. His failed attempts are very amusing, of course, in this episode at kind of winning over the detectives and kind of like becoming a part of the team officially, but it eventually leads to a fitting nod to a classic Dexter trait with the birth of his most iconic way of blending in with the crowd. Fans will not be disappointed with this and the episode as a whole. I think it's great. I mean, the show has a long way to go, of course. You know, there's still 8 episodes to really tell its story, but this episode increases expectations and teases a very exciting season ahead. The dark passenger was rising up, and there was only one thing I could do about it. Hello darkness, my old friend, as they play the badass fucking Alice in Chains song to end the episode. That was incredible. Let's get into the review. Just kind of like overall thoughts, maybe talking about some of the plot lines. Again, I really like that Laura Moser is being brought in this early, and I really like that she seems to be becoming a huge part with these flashbacks. We're flashing back even further than the 90s, which is not something that I really expected out of this show, but I'm very glad they're doing it. I think it is very necessary. I think it's going to help the show really just tell its full story and not leave a whole lot of questions as we get into the sequel series Resurrections, which I haven't even mentioned in this video. Sorry if I talk a little fast. People comment on that. People have been leaving their criticisms. I fully appreciate that, by the way. I'm just trying to make these videos as prompt as possible, and if you feel like I'm rushed, well, I don't think I am necessarily, but there you go, man. This is just a really, really good episode. Again, Angel Batista becoming more involved. I mean, look, Huerta's got to get involved eventually in the next 8 episodes. She's too important of a legacy character from the original series to not bring back. Maybe Brian Moser being kind of foreshadowed here. Maybe show him a little bit on the screen. Again, there's a lot of promise. Right now, these first 2 episodes are really showing a lot of promise. It's not that the show is necessarily good yet. It's not even that the show's really found its wings as a prequel. It's just that it's very promising. There's a lot of really awesome storylines that are kind of setting up. There's a lot of awesome returns. There's a lot of awesome revelations and kind of explanations as to how some of these characters in the original series came to be. So again, I'm very excited. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the video so far. We're only 2 episodes in, and I think it's a very exciting one. Hopefully we get this done by, I mean, we'll get it done by July, but we need to get it done by early June, probably by the time I go on vacation, because I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do that with work, but I need to watch Stranger Things Season 5. We'll cover that on the channel. We already have Season 4 out on the channel as well if you guys want to watch those. Didn't do the early parts of the show, but you know, all that stuff's out there. Go check it out. Peep the socials, by the way. I will leave that on the screen and be silent for the next 15 seconds. Again, that's gonna do it. Leave your guys' thoughts in the comments. I know I'm slouched back like this, but I'm out.